Welcome to the Tech 1-2 podcast. I'm your host, John Kampas. In the studio today, I have the pleasure of having Nick Stavropoulos, CFO at EMPIST. We're going to discuss a very important topic today, and that's how your users are your first and last line of defense in your cybersecurity program. So let's get started.
Hold the line! Stay with me! If you find yourself alone, riding in green fields with the sun on your face, do not be troubled, for you are in Elysium, and you're already dead! Brothers, what we do in life echoes in eternity.
All right, well, Nick, thank you for being in the studio today. Really glad to have you. Can't wait to share this knowledge with the audience, especially with how important the users play, the role that they play in a cybersecurity program. So let's just first talk about understanding the changing landscape of cybersecurity and how users are impacted. Nick, let's just look over the last 10 years. How has the cybersecurity and digital transformation really changed how you see cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for inviting me to this wonderful podcast. Can't wait to discuss more about this very important topic.
It's an honor. Yeah.
I guess the cybersecurity spectrum has changed as fast as the speed of light at which technology is moving along with it, because they're both interconnected. 10 years ago, there was probably more of outside threats that an organization was facing that directly straight to their servers. We used to talk a lot about the worm. Somebody put worms on my server. And we're trying to find ways to protect that one single path that was coming in as a threat. As technology evolved, and now we're not just using our stationary desktops anymore, we're using multiples of devices to do the same line of business, including cell phones, laptops, and tablets. It has opened up different pathways, because what we think is still one server, it's not. What we think is still only one cloud universe, it's not. So it has opened opportunities for people with different technical knowledge who want to be false, who want to harm you, to find very creative ways of attacking you.
You didn't see that coming?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, especially everybody's connected at all times. From what I understand that you're saying, especially how it relates to the tech side of it, it was the one path of getting in through the firewall, and companies are really trying to protect the network and the firewall, getting through the firewall. But we're talking about the user side of it. Users are connected 24 hours a day now. They have devices. They're working from anywhere, device agnostic. Some are under corporate control. Some are not under corporate control. So when we talk about the threat, though, so we're saying that the threat is not just at the network level. We're talking about at the users, right? Is that, on the user side of it, we look at social engineered emails, also known as phishing emails that are coming through. We look at users are cloud connected. Things are governed by IT. Other systems are not governed by IT. So when we look at a connected network now, or a connected environment that spans an on-premise network, cloud technologies, software as a service, what are you seeing as far as the risk that poses to an organization?
Yeah, and I think, social engineering is a very important word that you mentioned, because it really impacts our digital identity. We have come the last 5 years to build this wonderful digital identity, and for some people, as we have seen, and maybe even family members, they pay more attention to their digital identity than they do protecting their physical identity.
Get off the stage. Are you crazy, man? I'm a star.
And whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's on LinkedIn, where somebody who wants to do harm upon you or your corporation can really almost in a way become you, imitate you to a level that's very personal. It will sound very familiar to other people within the company that you normally associate with. So now we see that they're no longer just going towards that firewall, trying to make that mass attack for the really, really big money. They're actually spending time getting to know the actual people who are involved in the organization's key decisions, whether that's the accounting office, the back office, the people who send the payments, the people who receive payments, somebody as a CFO like me who make financial decisions, and of course the CEO and the COO. So we see these tremendous efforts of people actually having full data on people through their digital identity, which they have built through the years online.
They look like me, but none of them are me.
And when we look at just the threats, we look at cyber attacks, we look at social engineering, we look at identity theft. It just, the list continues. But for the purposes of today, let's really talk about the impact and how a user, directly a user, that user who may, they pose the biggest threat to the organization. We often talk about external threats, but the internal threats, knowingly or unknowingly, the users are the biggest risk to the organization. And that's why we say the first and last line of defense, users need to be educated on the things that are occurring out there. And it's so important that your staff and staff of organizations and users of organizations are aware of what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing while they're connected to the network, or when they're at home or at the neighborhood cafe, when they're connected to the internet. So let's talk about some examples of some things. And we look at the we talked about social engineering. We talk about it from an email side. It comes in many different methods and channels. But can you give us some examples of some of the things that you've seen that perhaps either you've received or heard of that you can give the audience some examples of?
Sure. And before I start, let's not pretend that still there's not even state-sponsored organizations around the world actually trying to do the hard work of going through the back door of businesses like banks, financial institutions, social media to get mass information of data, right? So those still exist. But yes, the most common threats, as you mentioned, are usually tied with something that went wrong to the user level within a company and organization. For example, I mentioned earlier in our conversation, the billing department. Kate, who has worked at the billing department for 5 years, is very familiar with all the clients and all the vendors as well. So she gets an email from one of the vendors, which sounds and it looks like it's an email from Bill, who is from ABC vendor company, and says, you know what, Kate, we just changed banks. I will appreciate it from now on, you send all your payments to this particular account number with this route number at this banking institution with our company name. Of course, Kate sees that Bill sent the message. She won't question it. It looks exactly like him. So she then proceeds without telling anybody else in the group, just because she's done that also in the past, changing all that information in their payable system. And the next thing you know is she sends a payment, and a week later, Bill calls and says, hey, what's going on? Why are you guys late on your bill? Kate is like, what are you talking about? I sent the payment a week ago. And that's exactly the type of things that we're talking about. Very simple tactics that you no longer need to have these phenomenal programmers and computer software engineers to create this massive coordinated attacks on companies. You just have regular folk who's sitting all together, either in this country or another office somewhere in another part of the world, who just social engineering, and with minimum skill, they can actually do so much harm on a corporation. Most of the time, this money is not returnable. Especially if it goes through our security system, our wire system, our FDIC system, the money cannot be traced. Even if it takes even an hour to realize you've been scammed, the money will never be retrieved.
Wow. That is something that's very common. Actually, business email compromise, social engineering like that is the number one reported attack or incident to the FBI, and it continues to rise. Okay, so we say Kate, this fictitious person, Kate. Hopefully Kate's not listening.
Are you talking about me?
She has the authority of initiating wire transfers. She has the authority of making payments. Unknowingly now, Kate poses a bigger risk to the organization. Identifying the risks within the organization is a step that the organizations have to take. They need to look at their personnel, what do people have access to, and how do we mitigate the risk? The common factor that we see when we look at mitigating risk, because there's all this technology that can be put in place, there's all these tools and platforms that can be installed, but the common factor in mitigating and reducing the risk is education.
Correct.
It's education. People need to know what they should be doing.
Absolutely.
If you don't educate them, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't even know what you don't know.
I mean, we look at attacks using SMS messaging, smishing, phishing, I mean, spear phishing. And with the introduction of some of these AI platforms, ChatGPT and other AI platforms, previously you might be able to spot these things because why? Because maybe there was a grammar issue, they weren't grammatically correct, maybe there was a level of urgency, maybe, who knows? Now you can actually put in one of these platforms, write me a phishing email, and you'll get a pretty good phishing email that users may fall for. So let's just talk about the education. First and last line defense. Users need to know what they need to do. You mentioned these nation states. Let's not even go there yet. Let's not look at a sophistication. I think you would agree that the sophistication to attack someone has decreased significantly.
It's 100%, and that's why those attacks are so frequent nowadays.
So with very little skill, with the use of technology, you can launch an attack against a company? That's crazy.
It is crazy, and it's very serious, and it can create an immediate financial impact on any organization, especially when you're talking about large sums of money that somebody knows that you normally send based on logging into somebody's email, by the way, that's not even yours. In the example that I gave, Bill does not work for this company. Bill is a vendor at another company, but he somehow got compromised, and now they have access to all his emails and communications, including attachments. Mm-hmm. Many of us know that sometimes we just attach invoices, for example, to emails, right? So now that becomes a prime growing environment for somebody to do an analysis on. You know exactly what's the average amount of money that you normally send out to a particular company. So unbeknownst to everybody, this happens every day. As we mentioned, the money is not recovered, and it all truly comes down to the user level. The processes and procedures you have set in place or have not set in place for situations like this.
The only plan in this business is that there is no plan. I mean, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's so. How would you compare the level of education or knowledge prior to? I mean, so there's things that you've been learning as part of the employee education, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So and we speak to clients about this, and we talk to them about the training, and they're like, "Oh, more training, more training. Why do we need to train more on technology and systems?"
Why?
The facts don't lie. The amount of attacks that are occurring and targeting users, they just keep increasing, rapidly increasing. I actually heard a stat today, and the stat was small businesses, the average cost of recovering from a cyber attack for a small business is $990,000. How many small businesses just have $990,000 just laying around?
You can't recover. You're out of business.
And that's why 2/3 of businesses who suffer a cyber attack end up closing.
Exactly.
They can't sustain that. That's a big. I mean, again, small business. Many small businesses don't have. Let's just call it a cool $1 million. A small
loan of $1 million
in order to recover their business, and not to mention the reputational damage that can happen as part of that too. So, using those stats, educating is actually a cost-effective way for organizations to protect their business. They need to look at this as being proactive, preventative, because the cost when something happens is so significant.
Have you considered the cost?
So when we look at the education, it isn't just educating, it's actually testing. And one of the big parts of this is not just, driving training down someone's throat. Like, you need to do this training. Well, let's actually test people. So oftentimes we speak with prospective clients and even clients who aren't really serious about this education, and all we ask them for is a test. And a test is part of security awareness, and we call it enterprise security awareness training. We're not talking about phishing. We're just talking about enterprise security awareness. We want to test and see what percentage of people are falling for these types of attacks.
Sure.
So when we're able to do that, this is 10 out of 10 times an organization's posture is much lower than what the executives or leadership felt it was. And then once they see something like that, it's eye-opening. and it's alarming. They did this. They clicked on that.
Yeah.
They entered their information here. So if you're not going to do that, and these types of things are happening in businesses, because we know that every 8 minutes there's a cyber attack in the U.S. If these things are happening and you're not combining the education and not including education, and you think that you're just going to turn the other way, you as a business owner are not being responsible for supporting your business. You're not there responsible for supporting and protecting your supply chain and all their families. So when you have that kind of conversation, we talk about education. I mean, is the education that much of a burden to not protect when you look at what the alternative is?
Exactly. The alternative, it's much worse, always much worse, because we're talking about not only financial risk, we're talking about operational risk, organizational risk, and reputational risk. All those 4 risks are catastrophic, even if one happens out of the 4. But imagine all 4 happen at the same time. I know we mentioned a lot about ransomware and about a financial loss. What about if there's still data that pertains to your clients? So now, you as a business owner and as a CEO and as an executive, you're at the unfortunate situation where you have to call every single one of your clients, tell them that you've been hacked, tell them that sensitive information shared between you and them has been stolen, potentially even top secret stuff or patented stuff. Yeah. And you can't come back from this. Your business is destroyed forever. You could have 5 people organization, or you can have 100 people organization. There is no coming back from this. And then the reputational side of things is going to go out on social media. You can even make the news.
Hey, yikes. Sorry.
The worst part about it is when you look at these ones that have made the news, the majority of them were just because a user did something that, again, unknowingly. But let's talk about this culture of cybersecurity and a little bit about this no blame zone and, reporting things. But it first starts with being proactive. Proactive cybersecurity, security awareness, you need to train your staff. And we believe that you need to train your staff on a monthly basis. This isn't a one and done. This isn't, I'm going to train people once a year. In 2023, January 1st, 2023, we're going to train everybody. Right. And then for the next 11 months, they're on their own. Right. We need to train ongoing. It needs to be ongoing. You need to build that muscle. You don't go to the gym once and get in shape. Exactly. You don't train on something once and know it forever. You need to train on an ongoing basis. So we say, let's train people on a monthly basis. Now, yes, you may be a business owner and be like, oh my God, training people for another monthly on this, what's going to be my productivity loss? What's going to be the efficiency? But what's the productivity loss when everything shuts down? Yeah. I mean, again, what's the alternative? Right. It's not like the alternative we look at and say, you know what, it's going to be a tolerated risk for us. It's tolerated. We don't need to do it. Or I can't have people train for 30 minutes in a month. That's too much. 30 minutes times X number of employees. Oh my God, this is costing me a fortune. But what's the alternative?
Exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, look how far we've come from the days of antivirus, right? If you guys remember 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you buy a computer, it comes with a free antivirus software. That was literally the only protection that you had as a business. Then we started getting the cyber attacks, and now as we have the social engineering examples where the user, by 90% of the time, as you mentioned, it could happen at the Pentagon, it could happen like at Target, it could happen at ABC company with 5 employees. By 90% of the time, it's through a user that somebody was able to do a damage. And when we're talking training, because I take the training too, and you asked me to, of course, to speak for myself as an example, this is so easy. The training doesn't take more than a few minutes at a time. And also what I love is the phishing campaign emails that we have internally, which are fake, of course, but they keep me sharp into, hey, I just got this email. It says click on here, and then we have the ability to report it on the top right box that says phishing alert, send it in. And how satisfying it is when our security department says, congratulations, you have detected a threat on your organization.
Congratulations, you're a prophet.
When we talk about a culture of cybersecurity, it needs to be managed by, there needs to be 100% buy-in from leadership. A good cybersecurity protocol or program will not succeed within an organization if leadership is not taking it seriously as well. And seeing you as a leader of the organization taking it that seriously, I know that's doing, it also encourages others to continue this training. So when we look at just the overall organization, it needs to be mandatory.
Exactly.
It can't be optional. Oh, I don't have time. The time. Let's not even go down that road. I don't have time to do that. It's just not a priority. Yeah. So from a company needs leadership, needs to make it a priority for everyone, because again, the alternative, we talked about some examples of the alternatives. Nobody wants to be in that position. No one wants to be in that position. So we look at just I mentioned a little bit the no blame zone. So something happens. You clicked on something. Who is our example again?
It was Kate.
Kate. Okay, so Kate clicks on something. Now, if Kate is afraid, if there's this culture within the business that if you do something wrong, you're in big trouble, Kate will never report that she thinks that she did something wrong.
That's scary.
So you as a companies and organizations have to promote this. If something doesn't seem right, see something, say something. If something doesn't seem right that you did, you need to report it.
Exactly.
You need to take the steps. This needs to be planned. There needs to be preparedness. Organizations need to have preparedness around something like this happening.
You need to be prepared to raise an army at a moment's notice.
Now there's so many emails that are being sent. Spam, phishing. Yeah. One of the impacts that I think that goes a bit overlooked is that because there's so much phishing email that's out there, people are, because they don't know, when they're not educated, they don't know what they should be doing. Businesses risk when someone is actually legitimately sending them something and the staff doesn't know.
Yes.
Because they don't understand, and what they do is delete. So imagine that new deal coming in, or the new payment that's coming in, and it's truly legitimate, or something that's time sensitive that is legitimate. And because you're not educated enough, not you, but let's say someone isn't educated, what's the first thing they're going to do? Well, they're either going to open it right away and be like, oh my God, and it might be legitimate, or they're just going to click delete and never see that communication again.
Yes.
So this isn't spoken about a lot, but businesses are also they're experiencing these communication gaps between their partners or supply chain, because these emails aren't being delivered or they're not being seen. So what do you think? What do you think about that? Have you considered that aspect of it?
I totally have, and it's 100% true. And it is happening where we become either super sensitive to the training we just received, or we're like, you know what? It kind of looks like it. I'm just going to ignore it, and I'm not going to report it. The right thing to do in organizations like us is have no fear.
Have no fear. Justice shall prevail.
There's no shame in me saying, I just received this email. It might be looking like a contract, but I don't want to open it. I'm just going to send it just to be safe to the group, to the security group, to check it instead of deleting it or ignoring it.
Yeah.
I take the action right away. So I plead with people also in my group and anybody else who's listening today, when you do sign up with services, and hopefully it'll be through EMPIST because we would love to be that provider.
I see what you did there. Puns.
Have the peace of mind that we take the guessing out of the game. When in doubt, click the little button that's on the top right, and somebody will tell you if this is malicious or a threat or a malicious attack on your company, and then you can proceed with your business.
Yeah, and then they have the peace of mind. I was going to come up with some slogan there. I mean, you had when in doubt, but we'll leave that for another time.
Right.
So, but you had the being able to report something and having that peace of mind is so important. And if we haven't driven the point home, education, awareness. If you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And there are programs, there are systems, there's technologies that are available for companies to improve their overall security posture through awareness training, but it's also a good process. You have to have good process. The process is an important piece of this. It isn't about purchasing a piece of software online that's going to provide you this type of training. There needs to be a nurtured education campaigns that are created specifically for the organization so that they can relate to how the organization operates, so they become more real. If you're not in a particular industry and you start receiving simulated phishing for another industry that you don't work with, those are obviously, they're going to be phishing attacks. But when you can make them a little bit more specific for the organization, you can really improve the organization's security posture. And it's been proven, this is proven that the phish-prone percentage of an organization through education could decrease significantly over time. It won't be done in 1 month, but if you look at a course of 12-month period, over the course of 12 months, you'll see that an organization's security posture is increasing. So that's, again, the reason that we're discussing it today. Users are that first and last line of defense. We can talk about all these other mechanisms and tools and platforms and systems that need to be put in place on how to address other aspects of cybersecurity. But from a user perspective, users listening today need to understand the importance that they play into the overall security program and security posture for the organization. So as we wrap up today, any closing thoughts that you have to leave for our audience, Nick?
I want to bring the audience back to what you said about training. And it's the same thing as you said, going to the gym. If you're going to build a muscle, lifting that weight once is not enough. You have to continuously take it seriously and treat it the same way. And by the way, that training is should only intensify as we grow as a company, as an organization, and as more threats come here, because you want to build the muscle at the beginning and you want to make it even bigger. And there's no exception. Anybody from the janitor all the way through the C-suite and the CEO of the company should be taking the training. They should be talking about the training more with each other and do the simulated attacks, which are so important, as we talked about, but also discussing about it with each other at the water cooler, at the kitchen. This is serious business, and it's part of a corporate responsibility and should be recorded as such in every company document.
Absolutely. I mean, those are gold nuggets. I mean, the ever-changing landscape of cybersecurity, the ongoing training, that's the point of this today, ongoing training. The users are the first and last line of defense. Make sure as business owners, as leaders are driving this home, the importance of it. They need to fully support it and buy in on improving the overall security posture. Otherwise, the program is destined to fail, and you're just exposing your business to much more risk.
Okay, come on, let's go.
So we wanted to thank you today for tuning in to our podcast on why your staff is your first and last line of defense in your cybersecurity program. Tune in for our next podcast, and we'll see you soon.